until you make the unconscious conscious. It will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung said this over 70 years ago, but today, in 2025, most people are still living unconsciously, controlled by patterns they don't see, repeating the same mistakes, wondering why life feels like it's happening to them. Jung spent his entire life mapping the hidden forces that control us. He called them archetypes, universal patterns buried deep in the human psyche, patterns that have existed for thousands of years, patterns that are playing out in your life right now, whether you realize it or not. In this video, I'm going to show you 6 archetypes. 6 archetypes that Jung believed every person must confront. 6 patterns that shape your behavior, your relationships, your entire sense of self. And by the end, you'll be able to recognize which archetype is controlling your life at this very moment. Let's begin. So, what exactly is an archetype? Jung described it as a universal pattern, a blueprint that exists in what he called the collective unconscious, not your personal unconscious, filled with your own memories and experiences, but something deeper, something shared by all of humanity. Think of it like this: every culture, across all of human history, tells stories about heroes, about wise old mentors, about shadow figures and transformations. Why? Because these patterns are hardwired into us. They're part of being human. Archetypes aren't just abstract concepts. They're forces that shape how you see yourself, how you relate to others, the roles you play, the fears you carry. Jung believed that becoming conscious of these patterns is the first step to freedom, because once you see them, you can work with them instead of being controlled by them. So let's look at the 6 most important archetypes, starting with the one you're probably living right now. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? Like you're playing a role? Smiling when you don't feel like smiling. Agreeing when you want to disagree. Being productive when you're exhausted. Jung had a name for this. He called it the persona, the mask we wear for the world. Now here's the thing. The persona isn't bad. We need it. It helps us function in society, get along with people, do our jobs, but problems start when we forget it's a mask. When we think the persona is who we really are. When we've worn it so long that we've forgotten what's underneath. That's when life starts to feel empty, hollow, like you're going through the motions, but nothing feels real. Jung believed that one of the first steps to becoming whole is recognizing your persona, seeing the mask for what it is, not rejecting it, just acknowledging it, because underneath that mask is your real self, waiting to be remembered. But if the persona is the mask we show the world, what about the parts we hide? The parts we don't want anyone to see? That's where things get interesting. The shadow is everything you've denied about yourself. Your repressed impulses, your hidden traits, the parts you decided weren't acceptable. Here's the thing. You didn't choose to create your shadow. It was built for you, by your parents, by society, by the need to fit in. You learned early on that certain parts of you weren't welcome. Maybe your anger, maybe your ambition, maybe your sexuality. So you buried them deep. But here's what Jung discovered. The shadow doesn't go away. It just goes underground. And from there, it controls you in ways you don't see. Let me give you an example. You're scrolling social media. You see someone's success post. Suddenly, you feel irritation, jealousy. They don't deserve it, you think? That's your shadow speaking. What you're actually seeing is your own unrealized potential, the part of you that wants that success, but you've repressed it. You've told yourself it's not for people like you. So instead of feeling inspired, you feel resentment. Jung would say, what irritates us in others is often what we deny in ourselves. The narcissist you can't stand. Maybe you're denying your own need for recognition, the lazy co-worker you despise. Maybe you're denying your own exhaustion. This is uncomfortable, but it's also liberating, because once you see your shadow, you can integrate it. And that's when real transformation begins. Let me tell you a story. You know the tale of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's the perfect metaphor for the shadow. Jekyll, the respectable doctor, the persona; Hyde, the repressed impulses, the shadow. Jekyll tried to keep Hyde locked away, but the shadow, when ignored, grows stronger until it takes over. Jung's method was different. He said, don't fight the shadow. Talk to it. Write a letter to your shadow. Ask it, what do you want? What am I denying? Don't judge the answers. Just listen. This is called shadow work, and it's one of the most powerful tools for growth, because your shadow doesn't just contain darkness. It also contains unrealized strengths, creativity you suppressed, confidence you buried, parts of you that could actually make your life better. So shadow work isn't about confronting some evil monster. It's about welcoming home the parts of yourself you've been keeping outside in the cold. Kind of beautiful when you think about it. Now, let's talk about the hero. This is the archetype everyone thinks they know. The person who goes on a journey, faces challenges, comes back transformed. But Jung saw something deeper. He said the hero's journey isn't just a story. It's a psychological process, a pattern of growth that every person must go through. Joseph Campbell studied this pattern across hundreds of cultures. He called it the hero's journey. The structure is always the same. The call to adventure, the refusal of the call, crossing the threshold, the trials, the transformation, the return. But here's what most people miss. The hero's journey is happening in your life right now. That career change you're afraid to make. That's the call to adventure. The voice saying, stay safe, don't risk it. That's the refusal of the call. The moment you finally decide to go for it, that's crossing the threshold. Let me give you a real example. Think about Steve Jobs. In 1985, he was fired from Apple, the company he created. That was his descent into the abyss, the darkest moment of his life. He could have given up. Instead, he spent years in the wilderness, founding Next, building Pixar. Those were his trials, the tests that forged him into something stronger. Then, in 1997, he returned to Apple, not as the young, arrogant founder, but as a transformed leader, and he brought back the gift, the iPhone, the product that changed the world. This isn't just a business story. It's the archetypal hero's journey playing out in Silicon Valley. Now here's the question. Are you on your own hero's journey right now? What's your call to adventure? What threshold are you afraid to cross? Because the hero's journey isn't optional. It's how we grow, how we become who we're meant to be. The only question is, will you answer the call, or will you stay in the ordinary world forever? The hero's journey isn't just in psychology. It's in every myth, every story, every culture. In my next video, we'll explore how ancient myths are playing out in your life right now. How the same patterns repeat, from Greek legends to modern movies. But first, let me tell you about the sage. The sage is the archetype of wisdom, the seeker of truth, the part of you that wants to understand, not just know facts, but understand the deeper meaning behind everything. Jung believed the sage appears when you start asking the big questions. Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Who am I really? These aren't casual questions. They're the questions that change everything. The sage archetype shows up in every culture. The wise old mentor, the philosopher, the teacher who sees beyond the surface. Think of Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, or Dumbledore in Harry Potter, or your own moment of clarity when you realized something profound about yourself. That's the sage speaking. But here's what most people miss. The sage isn't just about gaining knowledge. It's about integrating wisdom into your life. You can read 1,000 books, attend 100 seminars, but if you don't apply the wisdom, you're just collecting information. The true sage transforms knowledge into understanding, understanding into action, action into being. Jung said knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. That's sage wisdom. Not abstract philosophy, but lived truth. Now, we get to something controversial. The Anima and Animus. Jung believed that every person carries both masculine and feminine energy, regardless of your gender. The Anima is the feminine aspect in men. The Animus is the masculine aspect in women. Before you dismiss this as outdated, hear me out. Jung wasn't talking about stereotypes. He was talking about psychological wholeness. The Anima represents qualities like receptivity, intuition, emotion, connection. The Animus represents qualities like action, logic, assertion, independence. We all have both. But society teaches us to suppress one side. Men are told, don't be emotional, don't be vulnerable. So they repress their anima. Women are told, don't be too aggressive, don't be too ambitious. So they repress their animus. And here's what happens. When you repress these parts, they don't disappear. They show up in your relationships. Men project their repressed anima onto women, looking for the perfect woman to complete them. Women project their repressed animus onto men, looking for the strong protector to fulfill them. But no one can complete you. You can only complete yourself. Jung called this process integration, embracing both sides, the masculine and the feminine, not in opposition, but in balance. That's when you become whole. The self is the ultimate goal of Jung's psychology. It's not the ego. It's not your personality. The self is the total integration of everything you are. The conscious and the unconscious, the light and the shadow, the masculine and the feminine. Everything Jung called the process of reaching the self, individuation. And he was very clear. This is not something that happens overnight. It's a lifelong journey, and most people never complete it. Here's what individuation looks like. In your 20s, you build your persona, your career, your identity, your place in the world. In your 30s, you start meeting your shadow, your contradictions, your hidden desires, the parts of you that don't fit the story you've told yourself. And then, if you're lucky, somewhere in your 40s or 50s, the real work begins. The work of integrating everything, of becoming whole. Jung believed that what we call a midlife crisis is actually the beginning of individuation, not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. The moment when the ego realizes it's not the center of the personality, the moment when the self begins to emerge. So how do you know if you're on the path to individuation? Jung said, look at your dreams. look at the symbols that keep appearing. One symbol in particular fascinated him, the mandala, the circle with a center. Why mandalas? Because the circle represents wholeness. The center represents the self. When people spontaneously draw mandalas during times of crisis, it's the psyche trying to heal itself, trying to find the center again. You don't need to be an artist. Just sit down with paper and colored pencils and draw circles. Fill them with whatever comes. Your unconscious will speak through the patterns. Jung spent years studying mandalas across different cultures, from Tibetan Buddhism to Christian rose windows to Native American medicine wheels, all pointing to the same truth. The journey toward wholeness is the journey toward the center of yourself. And that center, that self, has been there all along, waiting for you to remember. So we've explored these archetypes: the persona, the shadow, the hero, the sage, the anima and animus, the self. But here's the question: which one are you living right now? Think about your life at this moment, right now. Are you the hero, facing trials, growing through challenge? Are you the sage, seeking wisdom, trying to understand? Are you trapped in your persona, living for others' approval? Are you wrestling with your shadow? Most likely, you're a mix. We all are. But there's usually one dominant archetype in any given phase of life, and recognizing it gives you power, because once you see the pattern, you can work with it, instead of being controlled by it. Let me give you some clues. If you're feeling stuck, repeating the same patterns, frustrated with yourself, you're probably meeting your shadow. This is the moment to do shadow work, to ask, what am I denying? What part of me am I rejecting? If you're facing a major life change, a career shift, a relationship ending, a new beginning, you're in the hero's journey. This is the moment to embrace the challenge, to cross the threshold, to trust that the trials will transform you. If you're asking deep questions, seeking meaning, feeling dissatisfied with surface-level answers, you're awakening the sage. This is the moment to go deeper, to read, to reflect, to integrate wisdom into your life. If you're feeling fragmented, like different parts of you are in conflict, you're being called toward the self. This is the moment to begin individuation, to stop rejecting parts of yourself, to embrace wholeness. Here's what I want you to do. In the comments below, tell me which archetype resonates most with you right now. I'm genuinely curious. Are you the hero, the shadow, the sage, something else? Let me know, because understanding your current archetype is the first step to conscious transformation. Now here's what's fascinating. These archetypes aren't just ancient psychology. They're everywhere in modern culture. Every movie you watch, every story you love, they're built on these patterns. Star Wars, the hero's journey. Luke Skywalker answers the call, faces trials, returns transformed. The Matrix? Neo's awakening is pure shadow integration, realizing the world he knew was a lie. Breaking Bad? Walter White's descent into his shadow, the respectable teacher becoming Heisenberg. Harry Potter? The entire series is about confronting the shadow Voldemort, who represents the dark side Harry must face within himself. These stories resonate because they're not just entertainment. They're psychological truth, wrapped in narrative. Jung believed that myths and stories are how the unconscious communicates with us. They're not random. They're maps. Maps of the human psyche. And when you understand the archetypes, you start seeing them everywhere. Not just in movies, but in your own life, in your relationships, in your choices, in the patterns you repeat. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. And that's when real transformation becomes possible. So let's bring this together. Jung discovered something profound, that beneath our individual personalities, there are universal patterns, archetypes that shape our behavior, our relationships, our entire sense of self. The persona, the mask we wear, the shadow, the parts we deny, the hero, the journey of transformation, the sage, the search for wisdom, the anima and animus, the balance of masculine and feminine, and the self, the goal of wholeness. These aren't just abstract concepts. They're forces at work in your life right now. And the question is, will you become conscious of them? Or will you continue to be controlled by patterns you don't see? Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But once you see the patterns, you have a choice. You can work with them. You can integrate them. You can become whole. That's the gift of Jung's psychology. Not just understanding, but transformation. If you want to explore Jung's work deeper, I recommend 2 paths. Blinkist, where you can get 15-minute summaries of these books. Perfect if you want the key insights quickly. I've got a link with 20% off in the description. Or Audible, if you want the full audiobooks. Free trial also linked below. The books I recommend: Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung. Start here. The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. All linked in the description. If you want to see these archetypes in action, watch my next video. Ancient Myths in Modern Life. Muhammad Ali, Robert Downey Jr., Joanne Rowling. How they all followed the same archetypal pattern. And how you are too. Thanks for watching.